The high school that I went to was West Leiden. It was part of the same district as Mannheim Middle, which would explain how I would see a lot of the same students from the other school. They transferred to West Leiden as well from Mannheim Middle. Now, for what it's worth, I'm just going to start with all the good stuff that happened in high school before the bad stuff. The first good thing that I can recall is that I won the Fern Award when I was a junior in high school. I got to see this guy named Fern. He was a pretty old guy, and all the other students who won were recognized for very good achievement. And we just sat in the library having a good lunch, and we discussed things with each other. And I was given this award that confirmed that I won the Fern Award, and it was actually a pretty nice time. I probably should look for the Fern Award sometime. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. Another nice thing that I remember about high school is this party that would happen every March. You had to pay a lot of money to get in, but in exchange for the money, you would get to play all sorts of games, and you would get unlimited amount of pizza and soda. And you already know how much I love pizza. The motivation for this was that it was an anti-drug thing, and it was meant to show the students of the school that you could have fun without having to do drugs and drink alcohol and stuff like that. I remember there was a giant chess game, and I beat my opponent. And there was also these foam games and these inflatable games where you had to do boxing and jumping around and racing on a course. And there was also music and dancing and karaoke. And it was just amazing. Like, I would have so much fun. I would just waste the night away over there. Uh, I actually wish that it could have happened more than just once a year. It was just so amazing. Uh, and, anything that gets me an unlimited amount of pizza is definitely a plus. Our science teacher was also a pretty cool lady. She was very humorous, and she was very good at teaching us stuff. And every time we started class, she would ask us a question alongside all of the other classes that she had to teach. And depending on what day of the week it was, depended on how far we would move on a board if we answered the question correctly. And whichever class got to the end of the board first would receive a pizza party along with a movie. And one time our class won, and it was just great. Like, we just didn't even have to do any work. Like, we had to turn in our homework, but we just got to relax, eat pizza, and we got to watch a movie. Like, the Seeker and the Lion King. I think it was more than once our class won. It was just a very nice class, and I think it was very generous that our science teacher actually allowed this. Like, if we knew enough about a question that was asked to us, then we would get a chance to get a pizza party. And I just thought it was fun. And aside from that, the class really wasn't that hard either. Like, despite it being science, you'd expect it to be a real pain, but it was pretty cool. It was really, really cool. I had a history teacher who was also a very humorous guy. There was this one time during the 9/11 anniversary, we got to learn more about how exactly the attack worked. And even though it wasn't the easiest class, I still had a nice time in there. There were a couple of times that I might have acted up, and I did some things that I shouldn't have. But aside from that, I really can't say that I had bad memories with my history teacher. I think I might have had him more than once. I even remember we got to do this project where we had to talk about something relating to the American Revolution, and I had to do like a drawing, like a picture of the scene that I was assigned to represent. And as as bad as I am at being an artist, I honestly can do like basic stick figure drawings. Like, I can do those fine. Like, the heads are a bunch of circles, and the bodies are like rectangles and squares, and the limbs would sometimes be just little straight lines. And I can't remember what it was that I had to represent, but I forgot to color it, so I ended up losing a few points, but that didn't bother me much because that was my fault. That was part of the assignment, and I didn't do it. But overall, I had a nice experience with my history teacher, and I really couldn't imagine myself having a different history teacher other than the guy that I was assigned to. I also got to relive being an actor in a high school play. It was called You Can't Take It With You. I'm not exactly sure what the plot was. I don't remember. It was about these two kids that were in love and they were from different families. You know, that trope. And I was actually the very, very workaholic businessman father of one of the main characters. And I had a lot of fun acting him out. There was one point where I was required to be knocked down by one of the other actors, and somebody in the audience told me that I was so good that we were so good at acting that out that they didn't know that that was part of the play. They actually thought I was being attacked. Oh, that was so much fun. And I even had my glasses knocked off, but that was actually part of the script. I had to have my glasses knocked off. It was a little tricky, and I'm actually surprised that they were never broken that way, but I still managed to pull it off. I had to do a lot of work remembering my lines and stuff, but it paid off very well in the end because I had a lot of fun in that play. I also had a baking class where I got to do all sorts of different pastries, such as cakes and cookies and brownies. I even tried to enter this brownie contest one time, and I put so much stuff on it to make it look unique, but it ended up looking a little sloppy. The person who won was actually somebody who made a smaller brownie in the shape of a heart with a little bit of whipped cream and a cherry. So it just goes to show that less is more. I learned that way. But in all fairness, I still got to do some nice things in that baking class. We got to make some hot chocolate too, and we would sell it to the students every morning. And there were a couple of other things that we did for a few fundraisers, like we even got to sell some apples on sticks covered in caramel and nuts. It was nice. I was part of a small group led by a Mr. Truesdale, where I sat with a couple of other students and we did a few things like we talked and we did a few games where we had to socialize. Sometimes we did some outdoor activities, and the best thing we ever did was go to a museum where we got to see all sorts of nice things, and we even got to be part of a Muppet play. Like, we actually got to do some hand Muppets. It was so funny. I wish someone had recorded it. The students in that group were actually nice people that I talked with, and Truesdale himself was actually a very understanding guy. I just really enjoyed myself while I was in there. Sometimes I would use the group as an excuse to take a nap so I would feel more energized for my next class. One time I was talked into singing in the cafeteria during lunch, and everyone just really liked what I had to sing. Like, I was doing some kind of opera music, and everyone was just really talking about it throughout the school. And one of my teachers even said that I would get a few extra points if I sang for them. That was actually a weird thing, but anything that got me extra credit in class was very welcomed. And gym class, just gym class, it was amazing. We really had to work up a sweat in there. We were doing all sorts of running and jogging and sprinting and stretches and exercises, and we played some games like volleyball and a little bit of tennis and soccer. We would go outdoors and indoors. We had to climb to the ceiling using these things strapped to our bodies. We even did some rock climbing and a little bit of gymnastics jumping. That was all a really fun experience. Gym was always my favorite thing in school because it was the class where I wasn't just sitting at a desk for an hour or so. I actually got to move around and get some exercise and, build my body and lose weight that I didn't need. And after that, I would drink a well deserved Gatorade. And I even got to play some fun games while I was there. It was just a really nice experience that I had with gym in high school. And aside from all that, the most notable thing about my time at West Leiden, amongst all other things, was how popular I was with the other students, despite that I never really did all that much. Like every single day, I would be greeted by other classmates as I walked into the classroom. I would be greeted by other students as I walked around the halls of the school, and they would recognize me for all sorts of different things, despite that I don't exactly know what I did at Leiden or Mannheim in order to get this recognition. And to be honest, I don't think I deserved it. Like, there was nothing really special about me. I mean, I was just a guy who preferred to watch YouTube videos and read manga comics and play video games over anything having to do with school. Like, even at the time, I was kind of losing track of my interest in school and all the work that I had to do. Which isn't to say that I was a bad student. I still got good grades and I was still able to graduate with a diploma. But aside from that, I was very well recognized by the other students, and they kind of thought of me as a friend, even though I never really spent much time with them because I wasn't too much of a social person. It's just that there are a very few select students that I even recognize from high school. Even just recently, I ended up coming across a friend who works at 7-Eleven, and he went with me to the high school. And it was very nice to see him again. And there were a couple of other times where I came across someone who went to school, and now they have a job, and, they're just living their own lives now. It's just that I never really took time to get to know them more. And by the time I left high school behind, I was kind of feeling bad that I don't remember too many of the students who liked me. They would recognize me in an instant, but half the time I wouldn't remember them too much. I may go to a high school reunion sometime just to see how everybody is doing and how things have, how things have been going for everyone since we all split up. I wonder how they would feel if they ever knew that I became a brony over the years. I'm pretty sure that would be an awkward thing. I just wish there were more good memories than bad memories. The worst part of West Leiden was the emotional abuse by the staff. 3 teachers in particular, Miss Talsma, Miss LeCount, and Miss Sayer, were incredibly nasty and mean-spirited to me. They always gave me special treatment, and they were always arguing with me. They would humiliate me in front of the other students, and they got me into so much trouble. Nearly every single day I would have to stay after school because of so many arguments that I would get into with them. Even when I tried to talk to them, they would ignore me, and they would just spite me so much. I would just go through some kind of emotional breakdown, and I would just end up passing out or something like that. I would stay in the bathroom just because I couldn't handle it. They always just made me feel like a failure, like I'm some kind of horrible person who isn't going to accomplish anything. And because they figured that I needed special treatment, they figured that they might as well follow me around too, even when they weren't supposed to, when they didn't need to. I just felt like they were constantly violating the privacy that I was entitled to. I just never felt like I got a moment to myself, and I felt like that I was always being watched. The job experiences that the school offered were also very terrible. They didn't pay enough money, the hours were too short, and they didn't appropriately prepare me for what I was going to have to deal with. And then they turn around and fire me from one of the jobs that I was given because they told me that I couldn't handle it. And the buses were especially horrendous. I talked about the problems that I had with my other bus driver from Locke School, but this bus driver from Leiden was a different kind of bad. And it wasn't just the bus drivers, the entire bus system was completely broken, and I had to go through a lot of problems because of it. In the morning, the bus would arrive too late and too early. At the school, the bus would arrive too early and too late. The school bus would leave me behind, which meant that I had to stay at the school for an extra hour. Sometimes they dropped me off at the wrong house. They couldn't even properly memorize my current address, and they dropped me off at my previous house. The lockers they assigned to me were no good because they were stuck, which caused me to take more time to put my stuff away and get my stuff, and they would sometimes locate my locker in the basement when my next class was in the top floor. They never gave me the proper training that I needed, and they didn't tell me or Mom about this life program that they had until after I graduated from school. And the people running that life program were completely unexperienced and unqualified. They were impatient, they were rude, and they were selfish. Even if they thought I was taking too long in the bathroom, they would constantly bang on the door telling me to get out. You don't bother someone when they're in the bathroom. You just don't. And the program itself was located in a building that was the size of a basement, and there were 23 people inside. It was too crowded, there wasn't enough room to do anything, and there were too many people to keep in check of. The other students that were there were unorganized and they were very unmannered. Sometimes they would make snarky remarks about me and other students. One of them gave me the middle finger for absolutely no reason. They always demanded that things go their way, no matter how I prepared for stuff, and no matter how well I was following the directions that I was given. The teachers in charge there would also humiliate me and yell at me and get upset with me for all sorts of stupid shit. It got so stressful that I just wanted to stop going. I wanted to stop going to this program because it was so shitty. Eventually, I did stop going after I got myself hurt and Mom had to pick me up. I don't know, it just got so abusive and it just overwhelmed me so much that I don't know, I just shut down. Mom told me that I would stop going for a little bit, and she told me to write about what was happening to me. I just kept on doing this to make sure that I was calmed down after what happened, until finally she told me that I wasn't gonna go back to that life center. She was going to take me to a different place at Glen Oaks, which also turned out to be crappy. They didn't have anything for lunch. All they had was these small peanut butter and jelly sandwiches they would have for us every single day. They accused me of not getting a fettuccine alfredo recipe down properly, which got me into an argument with the teachers. They accused me of pushing another student when I was reaching for something that we were getting at the store. And they never let me see the therapist that they told me that I would be able to see so that I could talk about the problems that I had with Leiden and its life center. Eventually, Mom had me removed from there too because she was starting to not like it. And she heard about this place called Have Dreams, and they had an opening for someone like me. And she told me about how things would work over there, how everyone was trained to communicate with me. And eventually I looked into it, and I kind of liked how it was set up. So the first several weeks that I went there, I was enjoying myself. I got to practice some life skills. I got to try out some job skills. I even got to do some work for a while. I got a job at Walgreens, and I got a job at this bakery where I had to measure a bunch of ingredients that they were using for their stuff. and at the end of the shift, they would allow me to bring back a cookie with me. I also got to do some work for this other guy who was running a company called Infiniteach, and I just had to sort out some websites and information on other schools, and I even got to do a little kind of business talk with him when we went out for pizza. Yeah, pizza was actually something that I had a lot more than I thought I would while I was there. The place was literally just a few blocks away, and sometimes I would get my lunch over there, and it was just so delicious. I also did a good amount of life skills too, such as managing my own time, doing my own work, and one time when I got to go downtown for lunch, I got to manage my own money on what I would eat. At some point, I even got to do a presentation at the Pepsi Corporation. I couldn't believe this is something that I was doing. I got to do a presentation on Have Dreams at a place that makes Pepsi, my favorite soda. Admittedly, it wasn't always perfect. There were a couple of times that I got into arguments and feuds with the staff, but they were nowhere near as bad as Leiden or Glen Oaks or that Life Center. And unfortunately, I was only able to go there until my 22nd birthday. I said goodbye to everybody, and they were all wishing me a good life and to be careful out there. And they all signed a card for me, and I still have it in my drawer. It was actually a very nice send-off for me. And on the way home, I got to talk to the cab driver about all the nice things that I did while I was at Have Dreams. Like, even the cab driver was such a cool person. Like, she even gave me a number to this guy where I filed an appointment to have my wisdom teeth taken out. Sometimes, despite the flaws that that place might have had, I think about wanting to go back because there were a lot of nice things about it. They gave me job opportunities. They gave me opportunities at things that I didn't even think I would have a chance at. The students were good people. The staff were good people. I even got to talk to this woman who was training as a therapist, and I got to do a little timeline with her, drawing down a bunch of key events that happened in my life. Sort of like what I'm doing right now, except in a video format. A few months later, Mom signed me up for college, and honestly, it wasn't my first time that I was there. I was actually at Triton once, but I had to eventually go out of it because at the time I was going to Triton at the same time that I was going to Life Center, and I could only go to one of those places at a time. I wasn't able to keep up with the work, and I wasn't able to keep up with the testing, so I had to resign from there for a while. And after I got back, Mom had me go to the same classes that I went to before. I went to a PE class, I had to go to a math class, and I had to go to an English and writing class. Eventually, I took some other classes, such as a music class and a drug class. Now, it was actually cool at first because I was going somewhere for an education, and I actually did some homework, and I was actually doing something so that Mom would stop pestering me about how I do nothing. Triton College seems like a nice campus for people to learn things, and I would have loved to keep going there, if it hadn't been for the fact that I dropped out. And the reason I dropped out was because I failed math. Math was always my worst subject in school. I didn't have really good thinking skills, so I would easily get confused whenever I had to answer certain formulas and questions, and I had to memorize all sorts of stuff. Eventually came the day where I had to do a big test for math, and I remember I studied as much as I could and I memorized as much as I could, and a lot of the questions that I was being asked weren't even in the notes that I was studying. And aside from that, there were a bunch of trick questions with answers that all looked the same, and a lot of the questions were just taking too much time for me to solve. I just couldn't do it. I, I I'm always told that math is mandatory to graduate from college or to go to a university of any kind or to get a good job of some sort. Like, you know what? I shouldn't need math in order to get a good job. And the fact that I just never figured it out, it just frustrated me so much. So, for the last year and a half, I haven't gone anywhere for education, and I haven't been able to get a job. I haven't been able to look for a job. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Mom keeps telling me that I have to do something, but I I've been doing everything I can. Like, I filled out job applications, I did an online survey, and no one has returned anything that I've done. As far as I know, it's just doing chores around the house, and that's it. Now, Mom has been a little pushy about me deciding what I'm going to do with my life and knowing that I have to be able to take care of myself. And I really should, but I don't know where I could go, who is hiring, who would give me a job. And Mom has been under so much stress because she has been in this bullshit lawsuit where she's trying to get the schools to face responsibility for what they did to me. She's had to go downtown so many times, and she's had to go through so much in order to go over the evidence and doing a bunch of training and all sorts of stuff that I can't possibly say from the top of my head. She's just been through so much because she wants to make sure that the school is going to give me the training that I should have been getting, and she wants to make sure that the school pays for what they did to me. And while she was doing all of this, I found out that the school was actually going out of its way to make sure that they wouldn't have to face consequences for their actions. They messed with tapes that Mom was using as evidence, and she told me that Mr. Truesdale lied about what the school was doing to me. Apparently, he stabbed me in the back after all the nice things that we did together. It's going to take about a year before this can properly be settled, and even then she's not sure if we're going to get anything out of this. And despite all that, I was not really the best student when I was at school. I mean, despite all of the good grades that I was getting, I showed a lot of uninterest in stuff that was going on, getting into arguments with teachers. Sometimes I would tell myself that if I could go back in time, I would want to go back to when I was in high school because I just want to refresh my memory on all the things that happened while I was there so that I can see if Mom is in the right to sue them or if there were times that I could have done something differently to prevent a lot of arguments from happening. And even when I told Mom this, she still told me that none of it should excuse the fact that the staff treated me horribly. And I am willing to believe her because there really was no excuse for all the bad things that the school did to me. They just left me so socially traumatized and uninterested that it's part of what caused me to be antisocial and stuff like that. High school, it was a really rough time. And even recently, Mom told me that High school is a terrible time for everyone. Like, she said that it's something that nobody wants to go back to. It's a place where teenagers are coming up with all sorts of new ways to make each other miserable. And speaking of which, that's happening even today. And there's a lot of problems with school these days. There's kids bullying each other. There's a messed up education system where kids aren't learning things that they should be learning, and they're not getting the education that's required to graduate or get a job. Bullshit staff who do all sorts of things to humiliate students. It just feels like school has become a very, very bad place for people to be in. And even recently, I saw Brony making a comment where he had to go to a school for something, and he was doing something where he had to teach the kids stuff, and he apparently saw that the actual teachers were not doing much of anything or anything related to their job. And his comment was, I should not be doing a better job as a teacher than the so-called professionals who have been trained in this field. There's just so much to wrap your head around when you hear news about stuff that's wrong with schools these days. And I just, I can't bring myself to actually think about it because there's just too much. So that basically stems to the thing that I said at the beginning of this. I think that education is an important thing, but I hate school. I hate school because of what society has turned it into. It used to be a place where people can learn things and they can go there to socialize and stuff like that. Nowadays, you hear all sorts of news about students getting bullied and staff causing problems that make situations even worse. Schools that can't afford to pay their bills, so they have to close everything out. As far as I know, the only thing that people should be going to school to learn are things that they need to learn to get a job and to develop social skills so that they can survive in the real world. And as far as I know, even I wasn't getting that much of it when I was in high school, because of that stupid, shitty staff. And another problem with West Leiden is that Mom just told me that there were no teachers receiving training in how to deal with or communicate with people like me until after I left. That just felt like a complete slap in the face to me that they were only receiving training for that after I left. High school was a very crappy time. Not because I was bullied by students, but because I felt like I was getting bullied by teachers and staff. Teachers and staff that were trusted with the responsibility of teaching me something. And now I don't even have a job, and I don't even know where I could look for a job. Admittedly, I'm in a pretty pathetic position, and I just wish that something would make it better. Sometimes I actually wonder how much more hopeless my life would be if it hadn't been for that faithful Friday that I decided to sit down with a pizza and watch an episode of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. But that's a story for another day. I'm sorry that I've been taking so long getting these out, and I know that hardly anyone subscribed to my channel cares about this stuff, but this is a very personal miniseries for me, and I want to finish it. No matter what happens, I just don't feel like I can do anything else until it's done. I promise I'll do my best to have it done before Season 6 starts, and I appreciate everybody who has been with me this long, regardless of any mistakes that I've made, and regardless of the lack of interesting content that I've had recently. So, until next time, be sure to take care of yourselves, and I'll see you around for the next one. MisAnthro Pony, over and out.